Well, hello, everybody. I'm Pastor Steve, and we're here to talk about the book of Job. We're in chapter 38. We're slowly getting our way through here, and chapter 38 is where the voice of God comes in and enters in the conversation. So let me just start back. I'm going to back up on 37, verse 23, when Elihu, who we've talked about for the last couple of weeks now, has been making his dissertation to Job about all the problems he made. And he ended up his conversation, and I believe he was kind of interrupted probably by the whirlwind of God's voice. But he says, Elihu says, we cannot imagine the power of the Almighty, but even though he is just and righteous, he does not destroy us. No wonder people everywhere fear him. All who are wise show him reverence. It's a good word. And then the Lord speaks up, and he answers Job. He says, who is this that questions my wisdom with such ignorant words? That sounds like the Lord is a little upset with whoever it is. There's a conversation. Is he talking to Elihu, or is he talking to Job? Elihu could pay attention because it wouldn't hurt him to hear what is about to be said. And Job has been after a conversation with God since the beginning of this book. So he's going to get his wish, and this is going to make him happy somewhat, even though God is going to be a little bit critical. I don't know if that's really the right word, but he's going to not be real kind to Job's attitude. So it goes on, who is this that questions my wisdom with such ignorant words? Brace yourself like a man, because I have some questions for you, and you must answer them. And these questions are not questions that are just like, which way's north? You know, these are questions that we can't answer. Job can't answer. Elihu can't answer, because they are words that just speak to the power, the omnipotence of God and everything he's done. So he's going to ask some questions that are kind of mind-boggling. First off, he'll say, where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you know so much. Who determined the dimensions and stretched out the surveying line? No answer? Oh, let's answer this one, Job. What supports the foundations of the earth? Who laid the cornerstone? As the morning stars sang before, and the angels shouted with joy when I did it, Job. I added that. Who kept the sea inside the boundaries? These are words, it's something like when we think about the power and the greatness of our God, you go, we take these things for granted. You see, who stopped the ocean? Who put the doors on the ocean? So it can only go just this far. Oh, he said, I did it. And look in the book of Genesis, chapter 1. I put the ocean out there. I separated the land and the water. But he's not saying that. He's just asking these rhetorical questions of Job. And I got to imagine when someone says, you listen up like a man and listen these questions I'm about to ask you and answer them if you can. So he says, I said this far and no further to the ocean, and it stopped. Have you ever commanded the morning to appear, Job? And these are simple things. Where does the morning come from? As we learn and as we've gotten a little bit more sophisticated in our time of science and so forth, that the earth is rotating around and it spins and the sun comes up because it's spinning and all these things. But that doesn't answer how it happened. We know what's happening now, but how does it happen? He says, Job, tell me. You know so much. You've been wanting to face me and ask me why this is happening to you, why I'm letting this happen to you of all people. He's saying, you answer me these few questions and we'll get on the right stand. He says, have you made daylight spread to the ends of the earth, to bring the ends to the night's wickedness? Have you explored the springs from which the seas come? Think about that. The springs from which the sea comes. Some people have interpreted this that there are springs on the bottom of the ocean bringing fresh water, and indeed there could be. When we think about Noah's flood, they said the water sprung up from the earth, not just from the rain that flooded the thing. So he says, have you explored the springs from which the sea comes? But that could be as simple as when you walk in the mountains, you find a spring, and a spring goes down and hooks up with another spring, and another spring goes down and becomes a creek, and the creek turns into an ocean, into a river, and the river goes into the ocean. And yet the oceans never overflow. Why is that? Because God says, I put the doors on it. You can only come this far. Now, as time has progressed, we've learned that it evaporates and so forth. And that's a phenomenal achievement. I have sailed up the coast of the United States where the river comes out, and you can see the water turn brown, but it is a huge, huge river that just flows into the Pacific Ocean forever and ever, and yet we're concerned about running out of water. Figure that one out. But the reason it doesn't overflow, we found out, not only did God put the clamps on it, but he said, you can't come any further because I'm going to let you evaporate and come up and make rain and recirculate and so forth. But God is asking Job, did you say where the shores of the ocean should stop? Have you explored the springs? Do you know where the gates of death are located? He's really getting down. Where are we coming from, Job? What are you talking about? Have you seen the gates of utter gloom? Do you realize the extent of the earth? Tell me about it if you know so much. Where does the light come from? And where does the darkness go? When it gets light in this room, where does all the darkness go, Job? Tell me. I want to know. You know so much. Job hasn't said a word yet, but he's smiling, because one thing that he had said, he says, why has God abandoned me? Do you know that seems to be a major fear throughout the Bible? It says that David was confused. I believe it was chapter 22 of Psalms. He says, why has my God abandoned me and not answered me? He's abandoned me. Jesus, as he was hanging on the cross, said, my God, why have you abandoned me? This is a fear of all people that have made big strides in the Bible, and they do not want to be, neither do I, without God in my life. And Jesus said it, David said it, and Job thought it. Why have you abandoned me? But God is still asking questions. He says, have you visited the storehouses of snow or seen the storehouses of hail? Hail, H-A-I-L. I can't pronounce that very well. But he says, have you seen that? Do you know what I've done here, Job? He has made ice, and ice has been used in battles. They say in the Revelations, they said that hailstones were going to come from the sky as heavy as, I'm drawing a blank, but it's up to 100 pounds. Hailstones that will serve in the battle of Armageddon, that will kill people. Hailstones. God has made these. He's done in other battles, and not that big, but hailstones. When you think about the matter of water and ice and just the realm of things, and you think how God created that. This is always, I've always marveled at this since I learned it, I suppose. Now, it was a long time ago, is that water in its natural room temperature state is liquid. And when it's hot, it's steam and goes up into the air. And when it's hard as a rock, like rocks, when you drop it in the water, the rock will go right down to the ground. But when it's hard as a rock, when it's frozen, it floats. And that just defies everything we've learned in physics. Because I don't want to get too involved too deep in this, but atoms have electrons and they have neutrons. And as they heat up, they spread out, they're going faster and they spread out, and it becomes a gas and floats away. As it gets cooler, they get closer together and it becomes a liquid, and we have a liquid. And as they get colder, they come closer together and they become a solid, and it's heavier than all of them. But water is the one, I can't call it an element, a molecule that gets larger as it gets solid so that it will float. And if it didn't float, the ice would sink to the bottom of the ocean, to the bottom of the lakes, and it would continue to fill up and continue to fill up. And this earth would be an ice ball. But that one thing that keeps water floating as ice has kept our civilization going. How important is water? Our world going. I think of that and go, wow, isn't that amazing? Isn't that absolutely amazing? And God made that happen. If you can call me or write me or whatever and tell me what else, other molecule gets larger, I'm sure they're out there, but I don't know what it is. But thank God the water, ice floats in the water. Okay, and then it says, where is the home of the east wind, Job? I want to know. Who created channels in the torrents of rain? Who sends rain to satisfy the parched grounds? You know, we have droughts around here. We really miss the water. And we're talking about water right now, not having enough rain. And the truth of the matter is, water is, you can't go without water. You can't live without water. You can live without food for 40 days. Jesus did, but you couldn't do that without water. So, can you direct the movement of the stars, Job? Think about that one. The stars, God made the heavens and the earth. And he says, hey, Job, listen to this one. You know so much and you're so smart. Tell me, how can you direct the direction of all the stars, of all the Big Dipper, and the word I'm using, I'm missing it. Can you direct the movement of the stars, binding the clusters of the Pleiades and loosening the cord of Orion? Those are groups of stars that are out there. And you know, and as I think about in the days of Job, it was relatively dark. It was really dark at night. And they could sit back and look at those stars and say, oh, isn't that something? We, as growing up I'm in Sacramento, in Roseville, there's lights all around us, and it deters from looking at these stars. However, I'll tell you that I've sailed to Fiji Islands in the middle of the Pacific Ocean that is 1,000 miles from land anywhere where I was on a little 39-foot boat. The stars are phenomenal. They are out there that like you've never, ever seen. I say the Milky Way looks like cotton candy in the sky. It is just absolutely gorgeous. And God is asking Job, can you arrange that for us? We'd just like to tell me, how do you do that, Job? And then he says, maybe we'll make it easier. Can you shout to the clouds to make it rain? How's that? That's a little closer for you, Job. Or can you make lightning appear and cause it to strike as you want? Who's wise enough to count those clouds out there, Job? He says, tell me. I'm willing to listen. If you can tell me this, we can have a conversation about this and why these things have happened. But if you can't tell me, Job, who are you to criticize me and the way things are? Because I can't answer every one of those questions. I'm waiting for you. And Job is going to learn. We're going to go back into this further next week, but right now, think about this. And what we want to think about is how great our God is. We have songs like that. How great is our God? We need to continue to praise him, to worship him, to thank him for his majesty, for what he's done in this world, for what he's created. Because without our minds, none of the stuff that we take credit for, like a car or a camera, would have ever been done. And who created our minds to put all this together to make this happen? Only God. Only God can. And we need to remember that, thank him, worship him, and always know that he is with us. I said, I'll never leave you or forsake you. And we can count on that. So with that, go in peace and love the Lord. Thank you so much.